Hello everybody, welcome along to this video. Mr. Johnson teaches Macbeth Act 3, Scene 6. This is the final scene of Act 3, bringing to a close the middle of the play, where Macbeth is now king, but has also had Banquo murdered to try and keep him quiet, and then things are starting to unravel for him, and it sets up Act 4, where he goes on to do some more appalling things. A reminder that this video is part of the series of videos that I've done where I talk through every single scene in the play to help you revise and go over those scenes to make sure you're ready for your exams. And talking of exams, this is your GCSE English Literature. It's part of Paper 1 and it's part of Section A, making it the first exam that you sit for English. So make sure you're ready by revising all of those scenes. And without further ado, let's move on and look. In summary then, Lennox. So Lennox is a Thane. Like Macbeth was Thane of Glamis at the start of the play and became Thane of Cawdor. Thanes are noblemen, are important people who help look after bits of Scotland on behalf of the king. Now Lennox suspects that Macbeth is behind the murder of Duncan and Banquo, and he's hinting at this in this scene through a conversation he's having with a lord who hasn't been given a name. We learn through also his conversation that Malcolm and Macduff are in England and they're gathering an army, a reminder that Malcolm is the king's son who ran away after his father was murdered. And Macduff also went to England. He was not happy with what had happened and doesn't seem happy with Macbeth. So they are only two characters in this scene. It's a relatively short scene. So Lennox, as I mentioned, being a Thane, and we've also got an unnamed lord who would be somebody important as part of Scotland as well. So let's go through it then. Act 3, Scene 6, it says at the top there, we're in Forres, which is Macbeth's castle. Now he's king in the palace. And then we've got this starting one. My arrow, my first one, talks about Duncan and Banquo trusted Macbeth. Both of them are now dead. It talks about on just above the arrow, the gracious Duncan was pitied. Marry, he was dead. The valiant Banquo walked too late, and then he's dead. So it's almost a sort of setting up this idea of these good people have all died. What's going on there? And then my second arrow, Macbeth has put out the story that Fleance murdered his father and then fled. So actually, not only has Macbeth had his best friend killed, he tried to have Fleance, Banquo's son, killed. Fleance managed to escape, and now the story being put around by Macbeth is that Fleance was the one who tried to kill his father, which seems a little bit crazy and ludicrous. Now, as we move down towards that last arrow there, there's a lot of rhetorical questions appearing, which you'll be able to see through the question marks there. It was for Malcolm and Donalbain to kill their gracious father, and then near the bottom, were they the slaves of drink and thralls asleep? Was that not nobly done? He's asking rhetorical questions which are actually implying the opposite of what he's saying. So when he's asking these questions, he's actually almost saying the opposite, because he's trying to be very careful. If he gets caught accusing Macbeth or talking about Macbeth being a possible murderer, then of course he will be killed himself. So he's trying to say the opposite of what he thinks, but by asking it as a question, he's trying to get the Lord to sort of offer his opinion. Again, at the top there, we've got him saying like the opposites of what he's actually believing, and then in yellow there, just point you towards the fact that that is the first use of the word tyrant to describe Macbeth. A tyrant is somebody who rules through fear, who controls through violence. And actually, by calling Macbeth a tyrant, that has a massive sort of implies some real dangerous things about what he thinks about Macbeth here. You will hear Macbeth described, I think it's about 15 times the word tyrant comes up in the play to describe Macbeth, and that's the first instance of it. It's a really easy word to remember when you're trying to remember quotes for the play. The fact that Macbeth is described as a tyrant is really important. Further on then, the Lord starts speaking and starts talking about the son of Duncan being Malcolm, and actually starts telling us that basically, as my arrow at the bottom says, Malcolm and Macduff are in England and they're building an army with the holy King Edward, who's called Cyward, that last word there, Cyward, and that is basically, we think that's actually meant to be Edward the Confessor, who was a real life king over 1,000 years ago. Finally then to look, or nearly finally I should say, perhaps our lives can be returned to normal, says the Lord, once they come back. And there's a question from Lennox near the bottom there. Did Macbeth send a messenger to Macduff? And then the Lord replies, he did, sir, and with an absolute sir, not I, the cloudy messenger sends me his back. Basically, Macbeth requested Macduff to return from England, and he refused. So Macduff really making his intentions clear. With the final bit here then, with the arrow saying someone should ask Macduff to return and free us from Macbeth's cruelty. Look at this, where the arrow is, it says our suffering country. There's a lot of personification of Scotland over the next few scenes, which trying to sort of show how Scotland is suffering under Macbeth, making it sound almost alive, and that method being personification. Key themes here, well, tyranny, which is another word for a tyrant. So somebody who rules through fear is a tyrant, and that is called tyranny. But also the idea of power here, the power that Macbeth has, that these conversations now need to be had in secret. So there's some quick revision questions I'm going to finish this little video with. To check your own understanding, pause this slide and have a look at those and have a go at answering those questions, see if you can. If you can't, go back through and check the video. And that's it from me on this one. All that remains for me to be said is thanks for watching, and do check out some of my other videos for some of the key scenes. And thanks for watching, and for now, goodbye.